Hello, everyone, and welcome to 180 Degrees of Impact. My name is Matt Scott, and today I'm lucky to be joined by Delaney Henderson. Hey, Delaney, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? I'm good.
I'm good, and I see we have Oliver. Well, we had Oliver Benson in the background,
Right over there.
so we'll probably be seeing him later on when he is ready to answer some of these questions. But oh gosh, now he's staring me down. But as we get started, as mentioned, I'm really excited to talk with you and have this conversation and this interview. And I'd love to start by you just introducing yourself to the 180 Degrees of Impact audience.
Okay, yeah. My name is Libby Henderson. I started with an organization called PAVE, which stands for Promoting Awareness Victim Empowerment, when I was about 17. I think I was 17, yeah. So I've been with them for about 6 years now, and I do a lot of nonprofit work with other organizations. We do a lot of partnerships, and I speak to schools. I speak to law enforcement, different organizations, just about the impact of sexual assault and bullying. That's my main focus, those two topics. Those are my biggest passions because I experienced a lot of the similar things relating to that. So yeah, I'm super into nonprofit work and donating my time back to a cause that's really important to me.
Cool. And I guess one thing as a quick follow-up to that is just I'm wondering and this is always a weird question to ask, but I always tend to ask people why they got involved, but I'm curious, obviously I think if people want to learn more about you, they could Google and find different stories, and they could go on Netflix and watch Audrey and Daisy, for instance. So there's all this stuff they could do. But I'm curious for you, why you chose to take the step to actually get involved in advocacy as opposed to kind of just, going on with things otherwise.
I think there was a variety of reasons that I first got involved. I felt like back at the time, after I was sexually assaulted and after I went through, a major court trial and experienced the justice system and how impactful it can be, and how a lot of the time it doesn't go that the way that the victim or the survivor, is intending for it to. I've experienced that firsthand 3 separate times. And I think because of those experiences, it kind of prompted this new drive in me to try to change things. I am in school right now. I'm planning to go to law school next year. So I want to be a part of change within the justice system, but also on the advocacy side of things, I think I saw a lot of negativity growing up, not even relating to this, but just, in general about objectification of women and men, and different things relating to sexual assault with both men and women, and, child abuse and different aspects of, that type of work. I saw a lot of impact on people and the people's lives and how much it's changed their lives, but also how much it's altered it in negative ways. And so I decided to, ultimately take the leap with PAVE in the beginning, because I really wanted to change things. I wanted my voice to be heard. I wanted to, stand up for others who really couldn't stand up for themselves or didn't know how to stand up for themselves. I wanted to show them the path of how to do it.
Yeah.
And I knew that at the time when this happened to me, had there been an organization like PAVE that was right there, that, was standing by my side from day one, had they found me sooner, had my, path been different because of an organization like PAVE, I think it would have helped a lot with my healing process. So I wanted to be part of something, that grand, something that made a huge impact on my life personally, that I knew that could impact others. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's funny because there's this one pattern that I've seen where a ton of people, especially I'll say around our age, in this kind of era where we've seen the objectification, but then also this big uprise in advocacy. A lot of people tend to go toward the law enforcement side of things and law school. I have so many friends who I met through when I was at GW through Students Against Sexual Assault, and then since, who are yeah, I'm going to go become a lawyer and I'm going to fix the problems in the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty awesome that you're doing that, but you're also already like making a big difference, as you kind of were like mentioning with PAVE and other different, you know, things that you've done. And just as a follow-up to that, I'm kind of curious, like, are there certain things that stick with you most, certain experiences where you've shared your story where you feel like, wow, that's why I do this work and why I'm so proud to continue to speak up?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Probably a lot.
we could talk about, you know, so many different experiences for hours, but we'd be sitting here till tomorrow. I think a couple that really like stood out to me that I like remember so vividly, that made an impact on my life was this one school that Daisy and I were speaking to in Toronto, I believe. We were sitting up on like the stage area and just kind of answering questions and communicating with the audience. And I think it was an audience of 620 students or something. Mm-hmm. And it was the biggest crowd that we had both spoken to. So we were both like super nervous. Like we probably looked so awkward up here. Like it was so intimidating on every level. Not to mention that the whole crowd was dark. So we were like the only ones lit up. So we were like, we can't even see the amount of people in here, which you would think would be awesome, but it wasn't, because in our minds it was so much worse. Yeah. But I specifically remember after we finished speaking, like, you know, when we were asking, you know, is there any more questions and everything, we were walking down the stairs and I like looked to my right and I realized that there was a line out the door of students that, I mean, probably at least 50 to 100 students that were in line waiting to talk to us. And at first I was like, oh, like, you know, they just want to say hi, or like, you know, we were just on stage so they think we're cool, you know, whatever. Something that was like, so that they didn't realize how like normal we were. And so I was excited about that, like to hug them all and to just be like, hey, how's it going? Like, you know. But I realized after some time that they were specifically coming up to us because they either had been sexually assaulted or knew someone who was sexually assaulted and didn't know what to do. And every student that came up to us, and I kept realizing, like, this wasn't what I had thought originally, that it was just a bunch of students, like, excited to see us or whatever. Mm-hmm. I started to realize how big of an impact, how big of an impact we were actually making on people and students and kids and teachers. And how much, you know, this directly affects their lives. Like us being here, us showing the screening of Audrey Daisy, us talking about our experiences. And I specifically remember one girl coming up to me and she was wearing dark clothing and she just walked up and she was like, Audrey Daisy changed my life. And I don't even know if I would have made it till today if it hadn't. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm so sorry. Like, how can I help you? And I remember her like lifting up her sleeves and there was just like cuts. I mean, just everywhere, all over her arms. And I just like grabbed her arms and I was just like, it's going to be okay. And she's like, I know it is. And I remember that feeling of just like her saying like, I know it is. I was just like, oh my God. Like it's going to make me cry right now. But I was like, wow, like even if it was just that day, that girl woke up that morning and had seen the film and had felt at least a little bit better about herself or about her situation, whatever she had gone through, because of something that we were a part of. You know, it wasn't like it was just Daisy or just me or just Audrey or just, you know, it was all of us as a team that we were part of something huge, and that impacted that girl. And to me, that one person, it was worth like everything that I've done so far in my life. So I think that was like one of the biggest like moments of like showing me that like what we're doing is actually making a change. Yeah, it's really intense, because what you're saying, and one reason I love to have these conversations is because it's like, you know, it's like, so for me, like now I work mostly in marketing and doing stuff that's not related to like sexual assault advocacy or activism, and like not at least supporting survivors as much as I kind of felt like I was when I was in college, and then shortly after when I was a little bit more involved. But now it's like, it's so great to be able to talk with people who like get what you go through when you go to give a talk, and then people come up to you
after. And for you, I'm sure is like a lot more people than I've ever had, but it's like really intense because at least for me, I don't like even know when to expect it. Like when I go to like for instance with PAVE, like going to high schools and then giving a talk, and sometimes people will come up after and like disclose to me, and it's just really insane because I don't know, like high school students could be intimidating, I guess sometimes, and the questions they ask, all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's really intense, but it's good to know that at least like we're giving people space to kind of speak up. And actually, just to kind of share a story from one of my PAVE workshops. So to give context, and I'm sure you know this sort of thing, but like we have the different presentations we do on like healthy relationships and consent, and there are different videos, and like you're in one of the video or in a couple of the videos, and there was one point where there was one class I was talking to, and you know there are always different dynamics. Sometimes people are really engaged, sometimes they have a lot of questions, sometimes I'll say the boys or young men in the class, it's high school classes. Sure. They're like kind of like, oh, like what, like could be like, okay, so is it okay to drink like this much, or is it okay, you know? So they ask certain things, and there was one point where I was like pointing to the screen, like these are real people, like who actually, you know, could be here with me or instead of me, and something about that really got to them. They were like, wow, like Delaney's a person who could actually be in my school talking with me, not just someone who's on his screen. Who, like, so I don't know. I think it's really
like a picture, like an idea.
Yeah. Because like just your presence makes that difference. Like they're like, oh, this is real. Like just to kind of get into that for a second, like what have been some of those like challenges though for you, like you meant, I mean, we just bonded a little over the high school stuff, but is there anything that's like, oh, like this is a little bit tough with, you know, this?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely moments like it doesn't occur as often anymore, just because I've gotten into such a routine of like, you know, there are very few questions or comments that people can make in the audience that I'm not prepared for, or that I haven't been asked or said, you know, or received, you know, prior to that. I mean, I've heard the worst and the best. Like I've heard throughout the whole spectrum. Like there's no question that was too awkward or weird or, you know, uncomfortable for me personally, which is great now. But I think growing up in that, you know, I spent my entire junior and senior year talking to, you know, other students, other survivors, and just growing up in that, you know, in that world. But I think there was maybe less than a handful of times where I've actually, you know, I've been to, I mean, hundreds of speaking events and hundreds of, you know, different, you know, organizations, you know, events and fundraisers, etc. But there's been probably less than a handful of times where I have like sat back and been like, this is too much. This is, you know, and those were really impactful moments in my life, because I really had to take a step back and kind of do, you know, self-discovery and kind of figure out, is this something that I could actually handle? Is this something I could do? But luckily, and I'm not even like trying to promote PAVE, but like with an organization such as PAVE, you know, there's such a team behind you that never once did I feel like I was alone, or that I, you know, was in this and I had to just get thrown into the fire. You know, I was prepared ahead of time. I, you know, went in it, you know, knowing as much as I could, prepped as much as I could, you know, every speaking event, every, you know, event that we do, when I would have to go up and give a huge speech, or, you know, speaking in front of like Don Lemon and people, where it was like, wow, like, you know, I feel like I'm just like a pawn in all this, and I'm going up to give a speech about this. You know, it was very intimidating sometimes. But I think that, you know, the responses after were always worth the pain that I would go through during. So, you know, like during a speech, if I, you know, there's probably 3 different parts of my story that I can't just sit and have a conversation about with a therapist, with a friend, with nobody. but I specifically talk about those 3 topics in all of my speeches because I think that they're so important. And even though like every time I talk about them, I get a lump in my throat and like, it's very hard for me to talk about, but I feel like it's the most important part to talk about because it is the hardest part. And if I don't talk about the hardest part, it's going to be hard to convince other people to talk about their, the worst parts of their lives. So I have to be that example in a way. But I think that even, through those hard times, through those hard topics, that I've learned how to, just wait for the afterwards, wait for the effect that it's going to have on people, and it'll all be worth it. So it's been a great journey, but yes, I mean, it's definitely been like a very hilly, hard battle to kind of conquer through my life.
Yeah, it's like just thinking about, I don't know, because I feel like for me, so like, I relate so much to what you're saying with like, okay, I could get up on stage and talk about this, but like, I can't always have a conversation about this in the sense of, like, for me especially, like about a year, literally it's like almost exactly a year ago, like my dad passed away, and recently I had the anniversary of that, and like that's the sort of thing where I could tell you, like, I am now at a point where I would like love to not talk with everyone, but like talk about it, to like share like what grief is like, how that affects you, how that ties in with other aspects of your life. Like, I would say like one thing that's really awesome is like he really kind of inspired what I do with 180 Degrees of Impact now, which is cool.
Oh,
And
awesome.
there are a lot of like awesome pieces of it, but like sometimes you're just like, I can't like have a one-on-one conversation with everyone about this, or so it's I relate to that a lot in a different way, but still relate to that a lot.
The same thing. It's
Yeah.
hard times that we've gone through in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my my current boyfriend right now, like he got on me the other night because I don't talk about this part of my life. Like I can give a speech about it and talk to students about it, but like the closest person to me, I don't talk about it with. And it's because I've moved on from that part of my life, and like this is my future, and I don't want to connect the two just yet. So it's progression, and it's definitely working on things and opening up and trusting and communication. But ultimately, like one-on-one is a lot more difficult for me than it would be speaking to 500 people. It's really weird. I don't know why.
I really want to know, like, I guess this is kind of maybe off on a tangent, but I appreciate it. Like, what's that like? Because I feel like, so everything like I say on my interviews, it's like very real. Like people, I know certain people will see it, but it's not like I would necessarily have those conversations with them. And so what's that like for you, that like you have these things that people might see, but you're not, like, how have you navigated that?
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
I think the first date that I ever went on with my boyfriend, the first thing I told him was, don't Google me and don't watch me on Netflix. And he's just like, what? I think that probably freaked him out a bit. And of course he went home, and I'm sure he Googled me. I'm sure he watched the film.
Right.
But I think it's both easy and hard in the sense of, great, now I don't have to explain to him the basics of my story, but on the other end of things, now he thinks he knows my story, but he knows about a fifth of it. And I think that's the hardest thing I've struggled with kids and with parents and teachers and students who have watched me do an interview or watched me in 48 Hours with Audrey and Daisy, and they feel like they know my story and they feel like they know me in a way. And it's kind of hard to kind of, reestablish their perception of me and their idea of who they think that I am, or the strong person that they see me as, or, the leader in a sense that they see me as, when, I don't always feel that way. I don't wake up every morning like, yeah, like I'm going to conquer the world now. Like I've been through the worst, like it's nothing like that, but they see that and they expect that from me. And I think that it's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey realizing that, and kind of, when I would go on stage after a screening of the film and people would be like, oh, like you're actually normal, like you're not like crazy, or like losing your mind, or like jumping off the roof, like you're not doing crazy things. And I'm like, no, like I'm a normal person, you know, like I've been through the crazy train. I've, you know, done crazy things in my life because of what I've gone through. But ultimately, like, you know, I'm just like everyone else, which is so cliche, but it's true. And I think that that's been like the hardest part of my journey, is like establishing myself outside the film and outside the interviews of like who I really am as a person.
Yeah, and like just to get to that, like how do you spend your time? I know you mentioned school for instance, but like how do you spend your time, and what does your self-care actually look like nowadays?
Well, I will be the first person to tell you I'm terrible at self-care.
Aren't we all?
That is that is a struggle that I have dealt with, that I mean, my peers, my friends, my parents have all gotten on to me about. Like, it's bad. But when I do take the time to actually like do self-reflection and kind of, you know, contemplate decisions in my life and kind of figure out who I am as a person, I paint or I draw or I do something artistic, because I'm very crafty. I have a very artistic mind. I see things differently than a lot of people. But I love creating things, and I love, you know, making something grand out of something so simple like paint. So I think that I do that a lot. And I honestly, like, it's going to sound so weird, but I like, even just sitting on the couch, like even doing absolutely nothing for me is so new, I guess is the right word, because I had been through 6 years of never being able to do that, and I mean, always waiting for the next court trial. I mean, I went to court 4 times, you know, on 4 separate, you know, situations. So I was never at ease. I was never calm and felt like I could just relax. So I think I really cherish that time now that I'm able to take control of, you know, my day and say, I'm not going to do absolutely anything today. And that kind of like, but that it means so much more to me than it would a normal person, because I never had that. I never had that since I was 16. So I kind of forgot what it was like to relax and to clear my mind and to just not stress or not think about worst case scenario. So I really like cherish that part of it. And I guess in a way that's kind of self-care, but, in the same sense, like, you know, doing things I love, like painting and drawing, those are like my stress relievers, like to the T. Like if I am painting or drawing, like my mind is at the most ease that it could possibly be at. And it's been great that I've finally found something that I can actually do that with.
Yeah, it's like really tough to find time for self-care. Like I get what you're saying, that because it's so easy to just keep going and to try to do everything at one time and to never stop. Like recently I don't know what I was doing, but I was writing down like good things that happened in my day or things that I did that I was proud of, which I don't ever really do that. And actually there's this cool thing called the Moments Journal, which I bought 2 for some reason. So I'll end up giving it to you or something like that, because I'll see how it works out for me. But it's by someone I interviewed, and basically haven't gotten it in the mail yet. I'm getting it soon, but it will like let you go through your day and like think, just kind of be mindful of what happened. And so I'm trying to do that because I'm really bad at that. But
Journaling is huge.
yeah, it's huge. So we'll kind of see how that goes for me. I'm so bad at it, but I'm really committed to actually using this thing. And so we'll definitely see how the Moments Journal works for me. And then,
Just try it for a week. Like if you like struggling every single day for a week to like do it and it doesn't make you feel better, like don't continue it. But journaling for me, like I've journaled my entire life, and I don't do it nearly as much as I should anymore, but I journaled throughout my entire, you know, situation, and I'm so thankful for that, because although I can't read back through it just yet, I will one day, and I will realize how far I've come in my life and how much has changed and how much I've progressed and how much, you know, I have taken action to alter and to make new for myself. So I'm so thankful that I did that, but taking the time to do that is nearly impossible anymore.
Yeah, it's like one thing I'm curious about, like you mentioned journaling and so we talked about self-care and how tough that is. And I feel like that's the advice that everyone gives. Like, you need to have self-care, you need to take time for yourself. But like, other than that and other than journaling, do you have other advice for people, like whether they're survivors or whether they're just like people involved in this space, really like advice for them in general? That's a really broad question, I guess.
No, I know, but I understand the question. I've actually been asked it before, and when I was first asked it, I was like, what? And I couldn't even think of anything, but I actually ironically have an answer for you. And I think that the biggest thing that I wish somebody had told me when I was going through my experience and everything was that, I mean, it's cliche and it's simple, but like, it's okay to like not always be okay. And it's okay to not always put up a face and to not always have to smile and to not always have to show your strength or your leadership or your poise, to just be real and to be authentic, because I think that that's what makes a bigger impact on people and society. And whether you're going through a court trial, you know, even trials in your own life, you know, anything revolving grief, tragedy, whatever, you don't have to always put up a face. And that's the biggest thing for me, because especially, you know, doing TV interviews when I was 17 and going on 48 Hours and then Audrey Daisy, I had established this idea in my mind that these people expect me to be okay now, so I have to be okay. I have to be okay, and I have to at least show that I'm okay, even though I'm not. And for about a year, I would put up that face. I would, you know, when people would ask me, like, how are you doing now? Great. Like, I'm doing awesome. Like, I, you know, have moved on with my life. I'm back in school and everything. And it wasn't a lie, because at that moment, I felt okay. I felt like I was good and I was ready for the world. But it was in the moments that I would go back home and sit and be by myself, or be with Oliver Benson and just sit there by myself and ponder what I had gone through that day, that I realized I'm not okay. I'm not always okay, but that's okay. And I think that that is the biggest, you know, struggle that I've been through throughout this whole journey, is just like remembering that short, simple concept of like, you know, you don't always have to fake it, even if you feel like people are always watching you, or always, you know, watching your next move and making sure, like, you know, judging you and whatever. Just be real. And it's, you know, that realness and that authenticity that's going to get you through and to get you moved on, rather than just putting it on a shelf. I think that's
I feel like that's one, I relate to that so much. And I think like it's also on the flip side of it, it's like, it's okay, like you were saying earlier, like it's okay to not, I don't, like, people might be surprised, like, oh, you're like a normal person, you're like, you're not this like broken person, you know? And I feel like that's kind of also the flip side of it, that I find like when I talk to people about when I talk to people in general about like sexual assault, like people are very, you know, there's always this like certain reaction when it's someone who's not like not like you, or not involved in like in the actual work, where there's like oh no, like, tell me about how, and it's like, no, like there are a lot of people who are really empowered and I would say like making them, you know, making their way the best that they can, or making the best of a like bad situation, or like doing work to kind of change the way that things are. And so, and also people who are fun and who laugh, and like we laughed for probably like way too long about Oliver Benson before this started, because he's hilarious. And so you know, I just think it's I'm proud that like to share like that you're a three-dimensional person, and like we are all three-dimensional people. Oddly enough, like in this setting where you're not 3D, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, like I guess as a follow-up to that, just another, I don't know where I was going with my thought process, but
I'm not going anywhere. Like, I totally understand.
No, I think one thing I want to ask about, though, just thinking about who you are and like what you want to accomplish over time. I'm curious, like, what is your, like, if you had a magic wand, I don't have Oh, hold on. If you had a magic wand, and maybe I could add a sound effect or something right there. I don't know, but like, what would the impact you? What's the impact you want to make? Um,
Yeah, that's a big question.
yeah.
Besides changing the whole world.
I mean, that's a
Um,
obviously you're doing that. So.
no, no. I I think whew, there's so many answers to this question. It's hard to find one, but I think the biggest step in the bigger change of things, the bigger the grand scale of like no more sexual assault, no more crimes against women and men and children. Um, there's always steps that you have to take. And I think that the biggest thing for me personally is empowerment, is teaching kids, both, boys and girls, that you can accomplish things, and that even when you've had a tragedy in your life, or that you've experienced everything, or that you feel like the universe is against you, because I felt that for a long time. I was like, oh my God, what did I do to piss off the universe? Like, what could I have possibly done that was so bad that karma is out to get me? And I truly, in my heart believed that. And it took me a long time to realize that things happen, and that it's nothing that you've done to, to make these things happen to you. And it's not happening to you. The world is happening around you, and we are evolved in it. We are trying to make our way through it. And, whether it's a death, whether it's a loss of a friend, whether it's, a sexual assault or a huge tragedy, whatever it is, there are ways to get through it, and there are ways to move on with your life. It's not the end of things. It's not the, end of your life as you know it.
Yeah.
And even in the times when you feel that way, it's okay to feel that way, as long as you take steps to get out of that feeling. Because I was stuck in that feeling for 4 years of believing that, I just have to make it through this next court trial. I just have to make it through this next, court hearing, whatever. And then it's all going to be okay. And then it's all, then I will have gotten the worst. I will have been through the worst of my entire life, and everything now is going to be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
When that's not true. That's not true at all. I'm going to go through many hardships in my life. This wasn't the worst thing hopefully it was, but, that's everyone's hope. But regardless, I'm going to face different types of battles throughout my entire life. But as long as I remember there are ways to get through it, and I am empowered enough to do that, I can live a happy life, because happiness is a choice. I really believe that. And, whether you're in a difficult family situation, friend situation, life situation, choosing happiness and choosing, the motivation to move forward and to try to, make the life that you want is the biggest step into leading a successful life and changing the world and doing everything that you want to do. And that is kind of what I instill in kids, as young as 4, that I've given speeches to, where it's like, you can do anything, regardless of what has happened to you, or what is going to happen to you, or what is happening to you. Yeah. You can do anything. Nothing is preventing you from what you want, and from choosing happiness, and from getting that. And I think that was something I struggled with for a long time. So that's like my biggest goal, is to reestablish that in kids' minds, and reestablish that idea that you can accomplish anything, and that, regardless of what you've been through, even all the shit you've been through, you can also move on with your life. And there are ways to do that. So I don't know. I think that's like the first step in establishing a whole new culture, a whole new, reality for this world, is establishing that, nobody has authority over you. Nobody has, control over your life. You have authority. You have control over your life, and you control the way that it goes and the direction that it goes in, regardless of circumstance. So yeah, that's my biggest thing that I want to change about this world is that idea and that perception.
Yeah, it's like looking at your life, and maybe it's something that you were just talking about, but I guess like as one of my last questions and final and really favorite questions, I would say, like, if your life were a book or a documentary, what would that title be, and why? What do you think the title would be, and why?
Ooh. Oh man. I have never been asked that question before. That's a great question. I I don't know. I think something having to do with hmm something having to do with like resilience or overcoming or happiness or you know something relating around that idea of like being at the bare bottom of the world of everything life as you know it, of wanting life to end and then kind of coming up and like changing things in a 360. um I think something relating to that. I mean, I don't know if there is a title quite yet because I haven't. I mean, I think that once I, still address the rest of, my issues or whatever, and kind of really, take control over my life and my world. Because I mean, I'm still figuring things out. I just finished my last court trial last year, so I'm still kind of navigating my life. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that um, the choices that I have made, there isn't anything that I would regret. And I think that that has taken me 5 years to actually believe in my heart. And that's something that I would definitely want to show the world is that, kind of like what I was saying before, is that it's all a choice. It's all a choice of your perception of how you see yourself is how you're going to establish yourself and how the world is going to see you. And for a long time, I saw myself as weak, as shot down, as could not get back up, as wanting my life to end. And that's how a lot of people saw me. And as soon as I changed things, as soon as I started seeing myself as strong, powerful, resilient, I started believing these things. That's how the world started perceiving me. And I think that that has changed my world. So I think something relating to that. I don't have like a specific title. I would have to like sit here and ponder it for like 2 weeks, like think about nothing else. But honestly, I don't know if there is an answer because there's so many factors in my life that would relate to my story. But whatever it is, it would be something positive. It wouldn't be something negative like, overcoming tragedy or, it would be something that was positive that shows that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that that's definitely, but I'm gonna like think about this question. I'm really gonna find the answer to it now.
Yeah, one day I hope that you write a book or something. We'll figure that out. Well, I'm sure that this will come up again at some point.
Quite a story, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see, or maybe like there'll be like writing hours. Like, okay, we're gonna just write. We're gonna write, and we're gonna pull our books together. I don't know. So, but I think that's awesome advice. It's awesome to like see your story, and I don't know. I'm really happy for you, and I mean, it's taken a long time, as you were saying, like 5 years to get, to like get there. But it's that's.
But I'm here.
You're here.
Yes.
You're here, and that's what matters. And I know I'm thankful for it. I know a ton of other people are thankful for it. And speaking of, I always go for like the weird like segues and transitions. Speaking of where you are, where can people find more about you on the internet and connect with you?
I mean, besides just Googling my name,
connecting with you mostly, less learning more.
I mean, I have Facebook, I have an Instagram. I'm not very active on social media, although I'm trying to be because there's so many job opportunities and like the world is revolving around social media. So I'm actively trying.
Yeah.
I think I have a Twitter, but couldn't tell you what the login is, so I'm to be there. But I think my Instagram is like my biggest. That's like the one that I truly like connect to, and I'm always on. So yeah, probably my Instagram.
I'm sure people could find it. They just Google like Libby Henderson Instagram.
It's at Lady K, just FYI.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's the one. That's the real Instagram. And cool. And I guess like one other thing I'll ask as we wrap up, like a random question, because you mentioned like art and all that stuff that you kind of immerse yourself in when it comes to your self-care and your downtime. And I'm curious if there's like any music, anything you're listening to, anything you're watching that you would recommend for people, or that's been like really cool for you? Because I kind of want to know what to watch and listen to.
I'm not huge on TV. I try to like get outside and like not watch TV.
Yeah.
Although Netflix has become like my obsession lately, and I'm not loving it because I'm just like addicted to different TV shows.
Uh-huh.
But ironically, I was just thinking about this morning actually. I used to listen to a lot of like really depressing music as I was going through like my, situation and everything. And I realized in the past like 6 months probably I haven't listened to any like depressing, like sad melodies. And I was like, wow, like that is awesome. Like it's all upbeat, like dancing, like I mean I go dancing every weekend, like even like, drinking's not my thing, but like it's so much fun to like go and experience everybody else. Like so I go and drink my ginger ale and I'm like dancing, like I probably look super like intoxicated, but I'm like the most sober person there. It's the best thing because everybody's like, so having fun and dancing to the, electronic music and whatever. But in terms of like specifics, like I watch a lot of crime shows. I watch a lot of like documentaries and different, informational, channels. That's my biggest thing. But there are definitely TV shows that I'll give you a list that you should definitely watch because they're very interesting and they all have a happy ending, which is my favorite part.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I mean, I'll have to like think about that. But definitely motivational songs are my thing recently. Like Lindsay Sterling, I don't know if you know who she is. She's a violinist and she's just like the most amazing violinist I've ever seen in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely check her out. But other than that, yeah, I listen to a lot of dance music. It's fun.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you'll send me like a list of things I have to check out because I love when people recommend specific things. I'm like, I wonder, like maybe I should check that out. But just to wrap it up for people, you mentioned where people could find you, for people to find more about 180 Degrees of Impact. It's www.lets.care, like at Let's You Care, Let's YOU Care on social media, and Matt Scott GW on all of the platforms. But thanks again for joining. This has been a lot of fun, clearly, as I'm sure people could tell. So
this is Oliver Benson saying goodbye.
Oh, wait a minute. Is he going? Oliver Benson.
He's like, I heard my name.
Yeah, and I could barely talk without laughing, so I'm just going to say, for anyone who's watching, until next time, keep impacting, and thanks for watching.